Welcome back. You are live with Expresso on a beautiful Wednesday morning, and we're going to continue to shine a spotlight today on teen suicide prevention. It is, in fact, Teen Suicide Prevention Week. One death is one too many. And for our parenting segment this morning, family therapist and registered social worker and good friend Kim Abrams now joins us to give us some advice on what we can do as a parent if our child is depressed. It's a conversation that we need to have. Absolutely. And it's something that parents need to wrap our heads around, as difficult as it is. Maybe we all kind of live in denial to some degree when it concerns ourselves, let alone our children. So Kim, thank you so much for adding your voice to the conversation. And we've got the South African Depression and Anxiety Group's contact details on our social media platforms on screen throughout this segment. Please use that line. They are amazing. There is someone waiting to talk to you if you need to talk. That's the most important thing. So Kim, maybe a good place to start is to ask how prevalent depression is within children and teens, because children are and can be affected as well.
Yeah, I think we often think as adults that children are immune from feeling kind of what we feel. Yeah, but actually sadly it's one of the mental health issues that's just on the rise. We don't see any decrease in it. Children are actually coming in younger with signs of depression, and then obviously with life changing and being so fast-paced as it is, parents are often not kind of feeling like they can be up to date with everything that's happening and how to look after their child properly. So it's just one of those things that is unfortunately on the rise.
I think life is becoming more complex, and I think we often feel as parents, I certainly feel it now, even with a 3-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, that I'm on the wrong side of the digital divide and I'm kind of losing touch with reality. What are some of the biggest root causes for depression, especially in younger people? So,
just to put like a disclaimer, it does vary from child to child.
It's a scale.
But in terms of what we would see is kind of, well, in terms of looking at things that can affect depression, we're looking at peer pressure can be one of the major causes, academic expectations and needing to keep up with the really fast pace and hard kind of curriculum that children are facing.
And parents' expectations on top of that.
And children just feeling very confused in terms of their identity. So we're also seeing issues with children being confused about their sexuality, and then people not understanding how to help a child manage that, and that can often lead to a child developing a mental health issue like
spiraling
depression.
Out of control.
Absolutely.
What are some of the telltale signs? Let's get practical for a moment here. From a parent's perspective, what should we be looking out for?
So I always advise to look at behavioural changes and emotional changes. So emotional changes would be, you know, drastic changes in your child's mood. So were they kind of a very sociable person before? Were they hanging out with friends, and has that completely changed? Or are they becoming more tearful? Are they becoming more angry?
It's one of,
and then with behavioural, you know, you might see the child becoming more withdrawn and retreating and not wanting to do things that used to interest them. They might also have changes in their appetite, so eating more or less, sleeping more or less. So it is, again, a very broad spectrum group of symptoms we're looking at, but those are kind of the telltale signs. I suppose
a change is enough of
a
telltale
you know
sign.
your child best, so when you see a change, trust your gut on it.
Speaking of trusting your gut, a lot of that stems from the relationship that you already share with your child, that parent-child relationship, and building a strong foundation so that you can have that open door policy, so that you can have space and maybe kind of a general, you know, you're ready to see those kind of changes. How important is that child-parent relationship?
It is vital. Because I suppose how I usually explain it is if your child doesn't feel safe enough to talk to you about what they are going through, it's going to be very difficult for them to trust adults outside of the home.
A stranger,
so the parent-child bond is critical. But that's also not to say that if you have a fantastic bond with your child that they're less kind of at risk of developing depression, you know, because there's environmental factors we need to take into account that's beyond a parent's control. But your child, if a child has a good bond with you and they feel that they can come to you to talk about things, or alternatively, you always keep the communication door open, because if you're dealing with a teenager, they're not going to come willingly all the time. You have
Especially if they are locked in what can be a very painful cycle.
You have to reach out. So it can kind of make it or break it in many ways, the bond.
I think a good starter from a parent's parent's perspective, take your own baggage out of the equation. It's not your fault. You want to get practical and you want to make sure that they're getting help. And I'm speaking specifically now to young people. If you do feel like you need to talk to someone, maybe you can't talk to your parents, but there are people, neutral people that you can speak to in a very safe place. The Depression and Anxiety Group is there. They are open 24/7. They are there as a resource for you to be able to speak to someone who knows. Trust me, they know what you are going through. They've helped people in your situation. As alone as you do feel, there is someone who can help you. So make contact with them or speak to your parents or even speak to a friend, but speak to someone.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You're live with Expresso. Thank you so much for tuning in. Earlier in the show, family therapist and registered social worker Kim Abrams joined us to give us some tips on how parents can help their child overcome depression, or at least ensure that the home is a supportive environment, an open environment for your children to be able to speak. And we're going to continue that chat right now. And again, we're going to reiterate that we've got the contact details for the Depression and Anxiety Group, an amazing resource ready to help you right now on our screen. So please use them if you feel you have to. If a parent thinks their child is suffering from depression, what do we do? Once we've gotten over our own initial anxiety and we've got our own baggage in check, what do we do for our child?
So I suppose first step would be actually to raise it with your child, you know, and you can do it in a really gentle way by just saying to your child you're noticing that they're acting a bit differently, and you're worried about them. So can they maybe explain? Can they explain to you what's maybe going on for them? If you come towards them with kind of a combative approach and looking to, you know, accuse them of this is something that you need to go gently with. But also, if you are feeling like you've tried that and it's not working, you can, I say school is a great next step. So raise it with the school, raise it with the teacher, let them know that you're worried about your child. Because there might be resources within your child's school where they can actually get day-to-day support.
Or a teacher might have seen something, might be seeing bullying or something.
Yeah, and you can correlate all your information. But most importantly, it is something that needs to be treated with a professional. So you can reach out to a therapist or a psychologist, but then again, that also has its financial means attached to it, which parents feel that they can't do. So that's why it's really helpful to get involved or to contact national resources that we have, because there are some amazing organizations and NGOs around who would see your child for a reduced fee or even for free, because we understand how significant this mental health illness is, and there needs to be support in place.
What are the dangers of letting it go unchecked?
So if you let it get unchecked, depression is one of those things, it doesn't just get better with having a willingness to get over it.
Unfortunately, doesn't heal.
It doesn't heal. Time usually will heal depending on what you do with that time. So if you're going to put resources and support in place, perhaps then in time your child will learn how to cope. But to leave it untouched, to let it go, it can only worsen. And we've seen the results of it, where teens get so overwhelmed that they actually just decide, I have no other choice but to take my own life. Absolutely. So trust your gut as a parent. If something doesn't seem right, if it doesn't feel right, it's because it usually isn't. So trust your gut and try to address it as best as you can.
An amazing piece of advice. Any final tips that you want to leave with our parents?
I would say, you know, we all need to kind of work on letting go of the stigma attached to mental health. Depression isn't something anybody asks for. It isn't something that you can just get over.
It's not a choice.
It's not a choice. You need support with it, and we can't be telling people to snap out of it. We actually need to be supporting people in the right ways to help them learn how to cope with it.
And the key thing is you can cope with it and you can overcome it. You really can. As much as it might feel like a mountain that you need to get over right now, with the right resources and help, and just by starting that dialogue, you can work through it as a parent and as a child and as a family. So make sure those bonds are strong. Open up that line of communication right now. And again, I'll reiterate, especially if you're a young person watching this right now, if you're feeling like you've got nowhere to turn, if you feel like the walls are closing in and you have got no answers at the ready, there is someone you can speak to right now. If it's not your parent or a friend, contact the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. They are amazing. And again, I say, trust me, they know what you are going through. They've dealt with it. They've helped people in your situation to just speak to someone.